First contact gone wrong. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly at the Empire's border, where Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Pride of Stars. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire had ruled this sector unchallenged. No species dared enter their territory without permission. Until today. Commander, we're detecting an unknown vessel, Officer Tall reported from his station. His forearms danced across the control panels, pulling up sensor data. It just emerged from hyperspace at coordinates 7-7-9. Vex's scaled face remained calm, though his tail twitched with interest. Show me. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a ship unlike anything in the Empire's databases. It was blocky, almost primitive-looking, with harsh angles and what appeared to be crude welding marks along its hull. The vessel measured only 500 meters long, tiny by Empire standards. That piece of junk flew through hyperspace? Lieutenant Moore laughed, his mandibles clicking with amusement. It looks like someone strapped engines to a cargo container. Sir, it's transmitting something, Tall interrupted. Audio only, in. Wait, this is impossible. They're using our language. A deep voice filled the bridge. Greetings. This is Captain James of the Earth vessel Thunder. We come in peace, seeking dialogue with the Galactic Empire. We request permission to proceed to your nearest diplomatic station. Earth? Vex had never heard of such a place. He turned to his science officer. Any records of this Earth in our databases? Nothing, Commander. They're completely unknown. Vex straightened his uniform. Unknown meant unauthorized, and unauthorized meant hostile. Open a channel. This is Commander Vex of the Galactic Empire. You have entered restricted space without clearance. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with deadly force. There was a pause. Then Captain James responded, his tone still friendly, but now cautious. Commander, we mean no disrespect. We're explorers from a distant world. We've studied your broadcast signals for years to learn your language and customs. We only wish to... Enough. Vex cut him off. You admit to spying on the Empire. Lieutenant Moore, bring the fleet to attack formation. 20 ships should be more than enough for this rust bucket. The Empire's warships spread out in perfect formation, their energy weapons glowing bright purple as they powered up. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, sleek, curved, and bristling with plasma cannons that could vaporize asteroids. On the Thunder, Captain James stood in the center of a very different kind of bridge, where the Empire favored elegant displays and holographic interfaces. The human ship had reinforced steel panels, physical switches, and crew members strapped into acceleration seats. Captain, they're charging weapons, Lieutenant Smith reported, her fingers flying over tactical controls. 20 ships, standard Empire configuration. Energy-based weaponry, shields at full power. James sighed. He was 45 years old, a veteran of Earth's United Space Force, and he'd hoped humanity's first contact would go better than this. Follow first contact protocol. Defensive measures only unless they actually fire. Sir, they're sending another message. Vex appeared on their screen, his reptilian features twisted in what humans might recognize as arrogance. Unknown vessel, this is your final warning. Surrender or be destroyed. Commander Vex, James tried once more. There's been a misunderstanding. We're not your enemy. Please, let's discuss. The Pride of Stars fired. A brilliant purple beam of plasma energy lanced through space, striking just meters from the Thunder's hull. A warning shot. Every alarm on the human ship screamed to life. Impact detected. Hostile action confirmed. Smith shouted, Captain, the automated defense grid is requesting permission to engage. James closed his eyes for a moment. Humanity had prepared for this possibility. After centuries of war among themselves, Humans knew that first impressions in space might go badly. They built their ships accordingly. All hands. Battle stations, James commanded, his voice echoing through the ship. Release weapon safeties. Show them what Earth builds when it expects the worst. The transformation was instant and terrifying. Along the Thunder's hull, hidden panels slid open. What the Empire had mistaken for crude welding were actually armor segments that now shifted and locked into combat configuration. Weapons emerged from concealed ports, not the elegant energy weapons the Empire knew, but brutal-looking cannons that seemed designed to throw physical projectiles. Railguns online, Smith reported. Kinetic bombardment systems ready. Asterisk. Plasma torpedo tubes loaded. Point defense grid activated. Commander Vex watched his sensors in confusion. What are those primitive? Are those projectile weapons? They're using magnetic acceleration? He laughed. Do they think metal slugs can penetrate our shields? He would learn. Oh, how he would learn. Fire another warning shot, Vex ordered. Let them see the power of the Empire. 3 purple beams streaked toward the Thunder. This time, the human ship responded. Small turrets along the hull swiveled with machine precision, firing streams of superheated metal fragments that met the plasma beams mid-flight. The energy weapons dispersed harmlessly against the wall of kinetic interference. Impossible. Tal gasped. They stopped our plasma with projectiles. Before Vex could respond, Captain James's voice came through the communication system, colder now. Commander, that was your second shot. There won't be a third. Stand down. Arrogant primitives. Vex snarled. All ships, full attack. Destroy that monstrosity. 20 Empire warships opened fire simultaneously. The space around the Thunder lit up with enough plasma energy to reduce a moon to ash. Any normal ship would have been vaporized instantly, but the Thunder wasn't normal. It was human. Evasive pattern Delta, James ordered calmly. The blocky human ship moved with surprising grace, using chemical thrusters in ways the Empire had never considered. Instead of smooth, energy-efficient turns, the Thunder made sharp, violent direction changes that should have torn any crew apart. But humans, evolved on a high-gravity world, barely felt the G-forces that would have killed most Empire species. Return fire, James commanded. Target their weapons only. Disable, don't destroy. The railguns spoke 20 tungsten rods, each the size of a ground vehicle, accelerated to 10% the speed of light. They crossed the distance to the Empire fleet in heartbeats. The Empire's energy shields, designed to disperse plasma and laser fire, did nothing against simple kinetic energy. The first rod hit the Pride of Stars directly on its main weapon array. The impact was devastating. The entire forward section of the ship crumpled like paper. Atmosphere vented into space as emergency bulkheads slammed shut. Direct hit. Tal screamed. Shields had no effect. We've lost main weapons. Across the Empire fleet, similar scenes played out. The human weapons were crude, but horrifyingly effective. One ship lost its engines. Another had its bridge shields knocked offline. A third spun helplessly after a glancing blow sent it tumbling. How? Vex demanded, gripping his command chair as his ship shook. Those are just chunks of metal. His science officer ran calculations frantically. Commander, the kinetic energy at that velocity. Our shields can't stop physical mass moving that fast. It just pushes through. The Thunder wasn't done. Ports along its belly opened, revealing rows of smaller weapons. Sir, they're launching. Missiles? Moore reported, confused. Chemical propulsion missiles? That technology is ancient. The missiles were indeed ancient by Empire standards, simple chemical rockets with nuclear warheads. But the Empire had never faced nuclear weapons in space combat. Their entire military doctrine was based on energy weapons and shields. Point defense. Shoot them down. Vex ordered. The Empire's point defense lasers, designed to stop slow-moving fighters and debris, struggled to track the erratic, randomly maneuvering human missiles. 3 got through. The nuclear explosions in space were silent but brilliant. The electromagnetic pulses washed over 3 Empire ships, frying their delicate energy-based systems. They drifted dark and powerless in less than 5 minutes. A single human ship had crippled or disabled 8 of the Empire's finest warships. Commander, Lieutenant Smith said quietly on the Thunder's bridge. The remaining Empire ships are retreating. James nodded grimly. Let them go. Broadcast on all frequencies. His message rang out across the battle zone. Empire forces. This is Captain James. We came in peace. You forced our hand. Collect your wounded and withdraw. We have no desire for further bloodshed. But know this, what you've seen today is one ship, with minimal crew, operating under strict restraint. We are humanity. We prepare for war so we can choose peace. Choose wisely. Commander Vex, his bridge sparking and smoking around him, stared at the sensor readings in horror. One ship, one primitive-looking ship, had torn through his fleet like it was nothing. Get us out of here, he whispered. Maximum speed, and ... And send priority message to Empire Command. Tell them ... He paused, his scales pale with fear. Tell them we've encountered monsters. As the Empire fleet limped away, Captain James stood on his bridge, looking sad rather than victorious. Sir, Smith said quietly, you know they'll be back with more ships. I know, James replied. Send message to Earth. Tell Admiral Johnson. Tell him first contact protocol has failed. Humanity needs to prepare for war. The Thunder held position, alone in the vastness of space, waiting for the storm they knew would come. The monster awakens, Admiral. Kron had served the Galactic Empire for 200 years. In that time, he'd seen rebellions crushed, entire species brought to heel, and the Empire's borders expand across 12 sectors. But he'd never seen fear in Commander Vex's eyes until today. Run that sensor data again, Kron ordered. His 6 eyes focused on the tactical display in Empire Command's war room. Around him, dozens of officers worked frantically, analyzing every second of the border incident. The hologram showed the battle, if it could even be called that. 20 Empire ships, pride of the border fleet, reduced to limping wrecks by a single unknown vessel. Kron watched the human weapons tear through shields like they weren't even there. Admiral, Chief Scientist Dex spoke up, his voice trembling. We've analyzed their weapons. They're using pure kinetic energy mass accelerated to incredible speeds. Our shields are designed for energy dispersion, not stopping physical objects moving at relativistic velocities. Primitives throwing rocks. General Tor sneered from across the room. The massive warrior's 4 arms crossed over his chest. Give me 100 ships and I'll turn their metal coffin into scrap. You'll have them, Kron decided. General, take the 3rd Fleet, 100 of our finest warships. Destroy this Thunder and any other Earth vessels you encounter. As Tor left to prepare his fleet, Kron turned back to the display. Something bothered him about the human ship's behavior. Replay the moment after our first warning shot. The hologram reset. Kron watched carefully as the Thunder transformed, weapons emerging from hidden ports. There, he pointed. Freeze image. Look at those weapon placements. Dex studied the display. A single quotes extensive. Far more than we initially detected. Admiral, I count at least 200 weapon systems on that ship, and they only used 20, Kron said quietly. They held back. Meanwhile, aboard the Thunder, Captain James stood in the ship's true command center, a reinforced bunker deep within the hull, surrounded by meters of armor plating. The bridge the Empire had seen on their scans was actually a decoy, designed to draw fire away from critical systems. "Captain," Lieutenant Smith reported, "long-range sensors detect a large fleet approaching. 100-plus vessels, military configuration." James nodded. He'd expected this. "Send the activation code to Earth. Tell them we're moving to Phase 2. "Sir, Phase 2 authorizes revealing our true capabilities." "I know." James turned to his crew, 50 of humanity's finest, each one a volunteer who knew they might not return from this first contact mission. "Ladies and gentlemen, we gave peace a chance. Now we show them why Earth's children are dangerous. All hands, prepare for full combat mode." The thunder began to change. What the Empire thought was a 500-meter ship was actually a carefully designed illusion. Holographic projectors shut down. Sensor masks disengaged. Armor panels that had been arranged to look like crude construction now shifted and locked into their true configuration. General Tor's fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, a wall of imperial might that had conquered systems and crushed civilizations. Tor himself stood proud on his flagship, the Emperor's Wrath, a 2-kilometer behemoth bristling with plasma cannons. "General," his sensor officer reported, voice confused. "The human ship. It's bigger than our initial readings." "What do you mean, bigger?" It's still changing, sir." On every Empire ship, alarms began screaming as their sensors recalibrated. The thunder wasn't 500 meters long. It was over a kilometer. The blocky, primitive appearance had been a disguise beneath, was a sleek predator built for one purpose: war. "By the void," Tor whispered. "What is that thing?" The thunder's true form was revealed. Its hull was covered in overlapping armor plates that could shift and angle to deflect incoming fire. Weapon systems dotted every surface railguns, missile pods, and stranger devices the Empire couldn't identify. The entire ship seemed to pulse with barely contained violence. Captain James opened a channel. "Empire Fleet, this is humanity's battleship Thunder. We are currently operating at 30% combat effectiveness to minimize casualties. Turn back now, or we will be forced to increase to 50%. 30%? Tor roared. "Arrogant mammals. All ships, attack pattern Omega. Earn that abomination from space." 100 ships fired as one. The space around the thunder became a storm of plasma energy, enough firepower to crack a small moon. Any shield in the Empire's knowledge would have collapsed instantly. The thunder didn't use shields. It used something else. "Deploy the swarm," James ordered. From 1,000 tiny ports, clouds of drones emerged, each no bigger than a ground vehicle, but moving with impossible speed and coordination. They formed a living shield around the Asterisk Thunder, intercepting plasma beams with their own mass. When one drone was destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Empire's massive barrage was being stopped by what looked like metallic insects. "What in the void's name?" Tor's tactical officer gasped. "Those drones. They're moving at 20% light speed. How can anything that small have such powerful engines?" The answer was simple. Humans didn't build like the Empire. Where the Empire favored elegance and energy efficiency, humans built with brute force and redundancy. Each drone had a fusion core that would burn out after just minutes of operation, but minutes were all they needed. "Sir, the human ship is launching fighters," another officer reported. From the Thunder's hangars, 12 fighter craft emerged. To the Empire's eyes, they looked impossibly primitive angular metal boxes with engines strapped to them. No shields, no energy weapons, just missiles and guns. But the pilots inside were human. Evolved on a world with crushing gravity, they could withstand G-forces that would liquefy most species. Their fighters danced through space, pulling turns that defied physics. Focus fire on those fighters, Tor commanded. They have no shields. The Empire's point defense lasers swiveled, tracking the human craft. But the fighters moved unpredictably, their human pilots thinking three-dimensionally in ways the Empire's computer-assisted targeting couldn't predict. Where Empire pilots flew in graceful arcs, humans flew like madmen spinning, tumbling, using their engines in ways that seemed suicidal. Fighter pilot Lieutenant Cooper laughed as she spun her craft through a storm of laser fire. "Hey, Command, these guys fly like they're still in atmosphere? Three-dimensional thinking isn't their strong suit." Her fighter launched a spread of nuclear-tipped missiles at the nearest Empire cruiser. The ship's point defense destroyed most of them, but one got through. The nuclear explosion washed over the cruiser's shields, and the electromagnetic pulse fried half its systems. Back on the Thunder, James watched the battle unfold. Status report. Enemy fleet has lost 15 ships disabled, 7 with major damage, Smith reported. Our drone swarm is down to 60%, but regenerating. No damage to the Thunder itself. They're pulling back to regroup, the sensor officer announced. Wait. Sir, I'm detecting something else. 50 hyperspace signatures incoming. James smiled grimly. Right on time. General Tor was rallying his fleet for another attack when his sensors screamed warnings. 50 new contacts dropping from hyperspace. Human contacts. This is Admiral Johnson of the Earth Defense Force. A woman's voice rang out across all channels. General Tor, you are now outnumbered. Humanity offers you one chance. Withdraw, and we can discuss terms like civilized beings. Tor stared at his display in horror. 50 human ships had arrived, each one unique. Some were long and narrow, built for speed. Others were broad and heavy, floating fortresses. One ship looked like it was made entirely of weapons welded together. They were ugly, brutal, and absolutely terrifying. Admiral, his science officer whispered, each of those ships is reading similar to the Thunder. If they're all that powerful ... double quotes asterisk, all ships. Tor commanded, his pride warring with survival instinct. Emergency retreat. Full speed to Empire command. But before they could move, the human fleet did something unexpected. They formed a corridor, a clear path for the Empire ships to retreat through. We're not your enemy, General, Admiral Johnson transmitted. We came to the stars seeking friends, not conquest. Your people fired first. We responded with minimal force. Take your ships. Go home. Tell your Emperor that humanity wants peace, but we're very, very good at war. Asterisk. As Tor's fleet limped through the corridor of human ships, his crew got sensor readings that would haunt their nightmares. Each human vessel was different, because each came from a different Earth nation. The Russians built theirs heavy and redundant. The Americans packed theirs with advanced electronics. The Japanese ships were efficient and precise. The Israelis had point defense systems that could track a grain of sand at 1,000,000 kilometers. Earth hadn't sent a fleet. They'd sent a message. We survived each other. We can survive you, sir, Tor's communication officer said quietly. The human admiral is sending a private message. Tor accepted it, and Admiral Johnson's face appeared on his personal screen. She was middle-aged, scarred, with eyes that had seen too much war. General, I fought in Earth's last war. City versus city, nation versus nation. We nearly destroyed ourselves. When we reached the stars, we promised never again. But we also promised to be ready. Her expression softened slightly. Your Empire seems to prefer shooting to talking. We can do both. Your choice. The connection ended. Tor looked back at the human fleet, still holding formation, still letting his battered ships retreat. Send message to the Emperor, Tor said quietly. Tell him. Tell him the monsters have offered us mercy. Asterisk the Empire's fear. The Imperial Palace had stood for 10,000 years, a testament to the Empire's eternal dominance. Today, for the first time in recorded history, Emperor Zal had called an emergency session of the full council. Representatives from all conquered worlds, tributary systems, and protectorates filled the vast chamber. There forms a catalogue of galactic diversity. Emperor Zal himself sat on the eternal throne, his ancient body wrapped in ceremonial armor that hadn't been worn since the last great war 3 millennia ago. His 6 eyes surveyed the assembled crowd, noting the fear that rippled through them like a virus. "Play the recording again," he commanded. The holographic display in the chamber's center came to life, showing the battle the humiliation of General Tor's mighty fleet. 100 of the Empire's finest warships, held at bay by 50 human vessels that looked like they'd been assembled from scrap metal and spite. "Analysis," the Emperor demanded, turning to Chief Scientist Dex. Dex stepped forward, his tentacles writhing nervously. "Your Majesty, we've studied every frame of combat data. The humans, they think differently than us. Their technology is crude but effective. Where we developed energy manipulation and shield harmonics, they focused on ... throwing things very fast." A murmur ran through the council. The Emperor silenced it with a gesture. "Continue. Their homeworld," Dex pulled up a long-range scan, "is a death world. Gravity nearly twice our standard. Extreme weather patterns. Predators that hunt in packs. They had nuclear war before they achieved spaceflight. They survived impact events that would end most civilizations." The display showed Earth, a blue and green sphere that looked deceptively peaceful from space. "But that's not the worst part," Dex continued. "Their history. Your Majesty, they've been killing each other for their entire existence. Wars over resources, ideology, religion, even skin pigmentation. They've practiced warfare against their own kind for thousands of years. When they finally united, they took all that knowledge, all those weapons designed to kill humans, the hardiest species we've encountered, and pointed them at the stars. Ambassador Rex, an elderly diplomat who'd served the Empire for centuries, raised a frail hand. "Your Majesty, if I may suggest..." "Speak," the Emperor commanded. "These humans offered General Tor safe passage. They could have destroyed his fleet entirely, but they chose restraint. Perhaps we should attempt diplomatic. They're monsters." General Tor interrupted, his forearms gesturing wildly. "You didn't see them up close. Their fighters pull maneuvers that should kill any living thing. Their weapons are barbaric kinetic rounds, nuclear explosives. They fight like primitives, but with technology that shouldn't work." "And yet it does work," the Emperor said quietly. "One ship disabled 20. 50 ships turned back 100. He turned to his intelligence chief. "What more have we learned?" Intelligence Chief Brix stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we've intercepted some of their communications. They're not encoded. They're broadcasting openly, wanting us to hear." He paused. "They've been watching us for years, learning our language, our customs, our military doctrine. They knew exactly how we'd respond to their arrival. They've been studying us." The Emperor's scales shifted color, a sign of deep unease. "More than that, Your Majesty. They've been studying everyone. Every transmission, every broadcast that's leaked into deep space. They know about the Republic, the Alliance, even the forbidden sectors. They've been preparing." Meanwhile, aboard the Thunder, Captain James sat in conference with Admiral Johnson and the other ship captains. The holographic display showed a star map of the Empire's territory. "Orders from Earth are clear," Admiral Johnson said. "We demonstrate capability, but avoid escalation. The President and the United Earth Council want peaceful relations if possible." Captain Rodriguez of the Havoc laughed. "Peace? They shot first, Admiral, and we shot last," Johnson replied firmly. That's what makes us different. We're not here to conquer. We're here to survive and thrive among the stars. Captain James? Captain Lee of the Dragon's Breath spoke up. Your ship took the brunt of first contact. What's your assessment? James thought carefully. They're scared. Their entire military doctrine is based on energy weapons and shields. Our kinetic weapons and nuclear devices bypass their defenses entirely. But more than that, they're not used to species that prepare for war. Every species they've conquered relied on similar technology, similar thinking. We single quotes different. Different is an understatement. Captain Thompson of the Thunderstruck added. My crew's been monitoring their civilian channels. They're calling us world enders and death bringers. Some even think we're demons from their mythology. Admiral Johnson frowned. We need to change that narrative. Dr. White, what's your diplomatic assessment? Dr. White, humanities lead xenopsychologist, adjusted her glasses. The Empire responds to strength, but also values order and stability. If we can convince them we're not an asterisk threat to their stability, rather a potential asset, we might achieve peaceful coexistence. How do we do that when they're terrified of us? James asked. By showing them something they fear more, White replied. I've been analyzing their historical records. There are references to something called the Void Swarm, an ancient threat that nearly destroyed them 5,000 years ago. If we could demonstrate that we're protection against such threats back in the Imperial Palace, the debate raged on. We should gather the entire Imperial Navy. A young commander shouted. 50,000 ships. Overwhelm them with numbers. And if they have more ships? Ambassador Rex countered. What if these 50 vessels are just scouts? What if Earth has thousands waiting? That thought silenced the room. Emperor Zhao stood, his ancient joints creaking. Enough. Chief Scientist Dex, you said they survived their own nuclear wars. Explain. Dex pulled up the data. Your Majesty, approximately 80 of their years ago, humans split the atom and immediately used it as a weapon against each other. They burned their own cities, poisoned their own land. By all logic, they should have destroyed themselves, but they didn't. No, Your Majesty. They pulled back from the brink. They created treaties, controls, safeguards. They learned to live with the power to destroy themselves. And then, Bull quotes Dex paused. They went to space carrying those same weapons, but they haven't used them on each other since. The Emperor pondered this. A species that could destroy itself, but chose not to. That took their most terrible weapons to the stars, but offered peace first. Your Majesty. Communication officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. It's addressed to you personally. Display it. Admiral Johnson appeared on the screen, flanked by Captain James and Dr. White. The human admiral looked directly at the Emperor, her gaze steady and unafraid. Emperor Zal, I am Admiral Johnson of the United Earth Defense Force. I know you're debating whether we're conquerors or destroyers. We're neither. We're survivors. Earth taught us that the universe is hostile, that peace must be enforced, and that the best way to avoid a fight is to be ready for one. She paused, letting that sink in. We've studied your empire. You maintain order across 12 sectors. You've brought peace to hundreds of worlds. We respect that. We don't want to destroy what you've built. But we will not be subjects. We will not bow. We offer partnership, not submission. General Tor snarled. Arrogant mammals. You think you can dictate terms to the Empire? But Admiral Johnson wasn't finished. To demonstrate our intentions, we're transmitting our historical records. All of them. Our wars, our failures, our triumphs. See who we were, so you can understand who we choose to be. Asterisk. The transmission included terabytes of data. Earth's entire history lay bare. The world wars, the genocides, the nuclear standoffs, but also the peace treaties, the international cooperation, the moment humanity united to reach the stars. Emperor Zhao watched it all through his neural interface, experiencing centuries of human history in moments. He saw humans at their worst brutal, savage, turning their incredible ingenuity toward destruction. But he also saw them at their best sacrificing for others, building wonders, choosing mercy when they had the power to destroy. "They're insane," he whispered. "Completely, utterly insane. They weaponized splitting atoms. They poisoned their own atmosphere. They fought over imaginary lines on maps." He paused. "And they survived it all. Your Majesty," Ambassador Rex ventured, "perhaps their insanity is actually wisdom. They've already made every mistake a species can make. They've learned from them." "Sir," the communication officer interrupted again. "Long-range sensors are detecting something. It's impossible." "What is it?" "Your Majesty, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the forbidden sectors. The patterns match. They match the ancient warnings about the Void Swarm." The entire council erupted in panic. The Void Swarm, the legendary destroyers that had nearly ended the Empire 5 millennia ago. Most thought them myth, stories to frighten children. On the human ships, alarms were also sounding. "Admiral," the sensor officer on the Thunder reported, "we're detecting unknown contacts from Galactic North. Energy signatures are off the charts. They're not using hyperspace, they're just moving through normal space at near light speed." "How many?" Johnson asked. "Thousands, Admiral." "Maybe tens of thousands." James looked at the readings. "Those aren't ships. There's something else. Something alive." Dr. White studied the data, her face paling. "Admiral, remember the theoretical xenobiology scenarios we studied? About hive-mind space-capable organisms that consume energy?" "The worst-case scenarios," Johnson nodded. "The reason we brought nuclear weapons and kinetic systems. Because energy-based civilizations would be vulnerable to exactly this." White finished. Admiral Johnson made a decision. "Open channel to Emperor Zhao." The Emperor's image appeared, his scales pale with fear. "Emperor," Johnson said simply, "you have a problem. We have weapons. Perhaps we should talk." Humanity's true nature. Void between stars erupted with motion as humanity's full diplomatic convoy dropped from hyperspace. 50 ships became 200. Each vessel bore the flags and markings of Earth's nations: American eagles, Russian bears, Chinese dragons, European stars, African lions, and dozens more. They moved in perfect formation, despite their vastly different designs. Emperor Zhao watched from his throne room as Admiral Johnson's flagship, the massive carrier Storm, took position at the fleet's head. The Storm was 2 kilometers of human engineering, a flying city bristling with weapons, fighter bays, and something else the Empire's sensors couldn't identify. "Your Majesty," General Tor said, his voice strained. "That's 4 times the ships they showed before. If they're still holding back, ... "I know," the Emperor replied. Around them, the tactical display showed the approaching Void Swarm, a writhing mass of biomechanical entities, each one the size of a small moon, consuming everything in their path. "How long until they reach the Empire's core worlds?" 72 hours, Your Majesty." The Emperor turned to Ambassador Rex. "Arrange the meeting. Neutral ground. The station at Terminus Point." Terminus Point Station had once been the Empire's pride, a diplomatic hub the size of a small moon. Now it felt cramped as human and Empire delegates gathered in the main conference chamber. Captain James stood beside Admiral Johnson and Dr. White. Across from them, Emperor Zhao himself had come. Flanked by General Tor and Ambassador Rex. The Emperor studied the humans carefully. Admiral Johnson was older, scarred, with gray streaking her dark hair. Captain James was younger, but carried himself like a warrior. Dr. White seemed harmless, a small woman with kind eyes, but the Emperor had learned not to trust appearances with humans. "Your ships," the Emperor began without preamble. "They're all different." "Why?" Admiral Johnson smiled slightly. "Earth isn't truly united, Your Majesty. We're an alliance of nations, each with its own history, culture, and way of war. The storm is American. The thunder is a joint European project. The dragon's breath is Chinese. We cooperate, but we maintain our identities. You're barely unified, yet you present such strength." "Because we learned something important," Dr. White interjected. "Diversity is strength. Different perspectives, different solutions. The Russians build ships that can take enormous punishment. The Japanese build ships that are incredibly efficient. The Israelis assume everyone wants to kill them, so their point defense is unmatched. Together, we cover each other's weaknesses." General Tor couldn't contain himself. "You speak of war so casually. Your entire fleet is built for destruction." "No," James corrected him. "It's built for survival." "There's a difference." "Explain," the Emperor commanded. James pulled up a holographic display. "This is Earth's history. In the past 3,000 years, we've had approximately 5,000 wars among ourselves. We've developed chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons, cyber weapons, and things we don't even talk about. We've become very, very good at killing humans. And humans," Admiral Johnson added, "are hard to kill. We evolved on a death world. We can survive injuries that would kill most species. We can endure extremes of temperature, pressure, radiation. So when we developed weapons that could kill us, they could kill anything," the Emperor finished, understanding dawning in his 6 eyes. "But here's what matters," Dr. White said, leaning forward. "We chose to stop. After our last global war, we had weapons that could crack our planet in half. We chose not to use them. We chose to reach for the stars instead. And you brought those weapons with you, because the universe taught us a hard lesson," Johnson replied. "Earth tried to kill us every day: storms, earthquakes, diseases, predators. We survived by being prepared for anything. Space is just Earth on a larger scale." The Emperor was about to respond when alarms blared through the station. "Your Majesty." A communication came through. "The Void Swarm has accelerated. They'll be here in 6 hours, not 72. Through the station's windows, they could see them distant specks growing larger, their biomechanical forms writhing with tentacles of pure energy, consuming debris and radiation as they approached. "Our fleet is mobilizing," General Tor reported. "But Your Majesty, our weapons." "Energy-based weapons feed them. They absorb it, grow stronger." Admiral Johnson stood. "Emperor Zhao, you need our help. But first, you need to understand something about humanity." She turned to the display. "Show them Task Force Prometheus." The screen lit up with specifications that made the Empire delegates step back. 20 human ships, each one carrying something called Stellar-class weapons. The descriptions were terrifying devices that could cause stars to go nova, weapons that could tear holes in space-time, bombs that could eliminate matter at the quantum level. "You're insane," General Tor * whispered. "These weapons, they could destroy entire systems." "We call it MAD," Captain James said calmly. "Mutually assured destruction. We built these weapons hoping never to use them. They're our insurance policy against the universe." "But the Void Swarm," Dr. White added, "they're energy beings. Your plasma weapons feed them. But kinetic impacts, nuclear explosions, antimatter annihilation, these might work." Emperor Zhao stood slowly. "You're saying you can stop them?" "We're saying we can try," Admiral Johnson replied. "But we need to work together. Your knowledge of their behavior, our weapons. Partnership, not subjugation. Through the windows, the void swarm grew closer. Each entity was massive organic curves mixed with mechanical angles, beautiful and terrifying. They moved in perfect synchronization, a hive mind billion strong. Your Majesty, Ambassador Rex said urgently, we have to decide now. The Emperor looked at the humans, these impossible beings who had mastered death itself and chose to offer life. What do you need? Full tactical integration, Johnson said immediately. Your ships provide targeting data and keep civilians clear. Our ships do what we do best. Asterisk, which is? Captain James smiled grimly. Violence. Controlled, precise, overwhelming violence. Within an hour, the combined fleet took position. Empire ships sleek and elegant formed the second line. Human ships brutal and angular took the front. The contrast was stark. Where the Empire built for beauty, humans built for function. This is Admiral Johnson to all ships. Her voice rang out across both fleets. Empire vessels maintain distance and provide sensor support. Human vessels, weapons free. Remember, we're not just protecting ourselves. We're protecting them. The void swarm struck like a tsunami of hunger. Asterisk. The void swarm struck like a tsunami of hunger. The first wave hit the human line, expecting the feast of energy weapons they'd encountered before. Instead, they met humanity's welcome. Railguns fired tungsten rods at 20% light speed. Nuclear missiles detonated in predetermined patterns, creating walls of radiation and electromagnetic pulses. A human ship, Hammer of Thor, fired something called a mass driver, essentially launching asteroids they'd been carrying as ammunition. Not the void entities recoiled, confused. They couldn't absorb kinetic energy. The nuclear explosions didn't feed them. The radiation poisoned them. For the first time in millennia, they felt pain. It's working. General Tor exclaimed from his flagship. They're actually hurting them. But the swarm adapted quickly. They began dodging, weaving, learning the patterns of human weapons. Admiral, Captain Lee of the Dragon's Breath called out, they're learning too fast. Request permission for Protocol 7. Johnson hesitated. Protocol 7 was something they'd hoped never to use. Captain James, your assessment? James watched the tactical display. Thousands more void entities were arriving every minute. Do it. We show them everything. All ships, Johnson commanded. Protocol 7 authorized. Show them why Earth's children are the monsters of the galaxy. What happened next would be recorded in the Empire's history as the moment they truly understood humanity. The Dragon's Breath launched something called Relativistic Kill Vehicle, a simple iron rod accelerated to 90% light speed. It punched through 17 void entities before stopping, leaving a trail of destruction 50,000 kilometers long. The American ship Liberty deployed Kasaba howitzer, warheads nuclear-shaped charges that focused all their energy into plasma jets moving at 10% light speed, slicing through void entities like a sword through paper. The Russian vessel Winter's Heart did something even more terrifying. It deliberately overloaded its own fusion reactor, ejected it, and detonated it in the middle of a void cluster. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. They're absolutely insane. Commander Vex muttered from his repaired ship, watching the display. But the real shock came from the Israeli ship. Never again. It deployed something called antimatter cluster munitions, thousands of tiny capsules that exploded among the swarm, each one converting matter directly to energy at 100% efficiency. Space itself seemed to burn. In the command center, Emperor Zal watched the humans coordinate their apocalypse. Each ship fought differently, but they worked in perfect harmony. Americans providing electronic warfare, jamming the swarm's hive mind communications. Japanese ships surgically striking command nodes. Indians deploying their specialized Brahmastra weapons devices that created miniature black holes that lasted just long enough to devour a void entity. How? The Emperor asked Admiral Johnson. How can you coordinate such different fighting styles? Practice, she replied simply. We've been killing each other for millennia. We got very good at working together to kill everything else. The Void Swarm, for the first time in their ancient existence, began to retreat. These weren't the energy-rich prey they expected. These were predators, apex predators who had turned their entire world's history of violence into a science dot as the swarm pulled back. One massive entity, clearly a commander or queen, surged forward for a final attack on the storm. Admiral, massive contact incoming. The tactical officer shouted. It's the size of Earth's moon. Johnson didn't hesitate. Deploy Prometheus. From the storm's belly, a single missile launched. It was humanity's ultimate weapon, a device that could crack a planet. Called Prometheus because, like the myth, it brought fire from the gods. The missile hit the massive void entity and detonated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to crack. The entity didn't explode, it simply ceased to exist. Erased at the quantum level dot, the remaining swarm fled in absolute terror, disappearing into the void between galaxies. Silence fell over both fleets. Asterisk alliance of necessity. Aftermath of battle left space littered with the remains of void. Entities crystallized biomatter that sparkled like a field of broken glass. On the bridge of the storm, Admiral Johnson stood beside Captain James, watching as Empire ships moved carefully through the debris field. Signal from Emperor Zhao, the communications officer announced. He's requesting permission to board, Admiral. Johnson raised an eyebrow. The Emperor himself wants to come aboard a human ship? Apparently so. An hour later, Emperor Zhao stood in the storm's hangar bay, surrounded by his honor guard, but looking remarkably vulnerable. The human ship's interior was nothing like the elegant curves of Empire vessels. Everything was functional, reinforced, built to survive. Your Majesty, Admiral Johnson greeted him with a nod, not a bow. Welcome aboard humanity's flagship. The Emperor studied his surroundings. Your ship. It's not meant for comfort. It's meant for survival, Johnson replied. Would you like a tour? As they walked through the corridors, the Emperor noticed something remarkable. The crew was diverse, not just in human terms, but truly varied. He saw humans of every shade working alongside each other, speaking different languages, but understanding each other perfectly. Your crew, he observed. They're from different nations? 63 countries represented on this ship alone, Johnson confirmed. We learned that diversity makes us stronger. Different perspectives see different solutions. They entered the war room, where Captain James and Dr. White waited with General Tor and Ambassador Rex. The tactical display showed the retreating void swarm, now just distant specks fleeing toward intergalactic space. They'll be back, General Tor stated. The swarm always returns. Maybe not for centuries, but they'll come. Then we'll be ready, James replied. He pulled up a star map. Your empire controls 12 sectors. Earth and our colonies control one. Between us, that's most of this galactic arm. You're suggesting an alliance, Emperor Zhao said. It wasn't a question. I'm suggesting survival, James corrected. The void swarm isn't the only threat out there. Your own records mention the machine consciousness in the forbidden sectors, the dark matter entities near the galactic core. The universe is hostile, Your Majesty. Dr. White stepped forward. We've analyzed your technology. Energy weapons, shield harmonics, faster-than-light communication, all things we struggled with. Meanwhile, we have kinetic weapons, nuclear technology, and defensive strategies you've never considered. Together, Admiral Johnson added, we cover each other's weaknesses. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. You could conquer us. After what I've seen, your weapons could destroy the Empire. We could, Johnson agreed bluntly. But what would that gain us? Another enemy? More death? We've had enough of that on Earth. Show him the archive, James suggested. The display changed to show Earth, not the blue and green jewel from space, but images from its surface. Cities rebuilt from nuclear ash. Monuments to the fallen from 1,000 wars. Fields where millions died, now turned to farmland. This is Hiroshima, Johnson narrated. First city destroyed by atomic weapons. We rebuilt it. This is Verdun, where 1 million died in one battle. Now children play there. This is Beijing, Moscow, Washington, London, all destroyed in wars. All rebuilt. We're very good at war, Dr. White said softly. But we're even better at peace. We just need to know which one is required. General Tor, who had remained silent, suddenly spoke. You said your fleet had 1,000 ships. Was that truth or bluff? Admiral Johnson smiled. Currently, Earth and her colonies have 3,000 combat-capable vessels. We're building 100 more each year. The Empire delegates exchanged shocked looks. But, Johnson continued, most are explorer vessels with weapons, not dedicated warships. We came to the stars to explore, not conquer. The weapons are just insurance. Your Majesty, Ambassador Rex said carefully, may I speak freely? The Emperor nodded. In our entire history, we've never encountered a species like humanity. They have the power to destroy us, but choose not to. They offer partnership instead of demanding submission. Logic suggests we should accept, and if we refuse... The Emperor asked. Captain James answered honestly. Then we fortify our borders, defend our space, and hope we never have to fight. But the Void Swarm will return. The machine consciousness is expanding. Eventually, Your Majesty, you'll need allies who can fight in ways you can't. The Emperor turned to the window, gazing at the stars. You know what troubles me most about humanity? What's that? Johnson asked. You've mastered death, but you choose life. You've perfected war, but you seek peace. You're contradictions. We're survivors. Dr. White corrected. We do whatever is necessary to continue. Right now, peace is necessary. A communication interrupted them. Admiral, we're receiving signals from across the Empire. Civilian channels are broadcasting the battle. The entire Empire saw what we did to the Void Swarm. On the screen, they could see Empire news feeds. The headlines were dramatic. Humans save Empire. Deathworlders defeat ancient enemy. The monsters who chose to be heroes. Your people? The Emperor observed. They're calling you heroes. We're not heroes, James said firmly. We're just humans. We protect what we can, fight when we must, and try to leave things better than we found them. The Emperor made his decision. Admiral Johnson, on behalf of the Galactic Empire, I propose an alliance. Full technological exchange, mutual defense, shared exploration of the galaxy. And in return, the Empire recognizes Earth's sovereignty and territorial claims. You'll have a voice in the Galactic Council, trade rights, and ... double quotes, he paused. Our friendship. Johnson extended her hand, a human gesture the Emperor had learned from their transmissions. He took it carefully with one of his scaled hands. One condition, Johnson added. This alliance treats Earth and the Empire as equals. No subordinates, no tribute. Partners. Partners. The Emperor agreed. 6 months later, the ceremony on Terminus Point Station was broadcast across both civilizations. Young officers from both fleets stood in formation, humans in their various national uniforms. Empire soldiers in their ceremonial armor. Commander Vex, his ship now repaired and upgraded with human kinetic weapons, stood beside Captain James. I hated you, Vex admitted. When you destroyed my fleet, I wanted revenge. And now? James asked. Now I understand. You weren't showing strength. You were showing restraint. Vex paused. That terrifies me more than your weapons. In the Joint Training Center, Empire pilots learned to think three-dimensionally from human instructors, while humans studied energy manipulation and shield technology. The fusion of technologies was creating ships neither species could have built alone. Dr. White worked with Empire scientists, combining human medical knowledge with Empire biotechnology. They were already making breakthroughs that would benefit both species. The universe is vast, Emperor Zal said in his speech to both civilizations. It contains wonders and terrors we've yet to discover. But today, we face them together. The Empire brings wisdom and technology. Humanity brings strength and determination. Together, we are greater than our parts. Admiral Johnson gave her own speech to Earth. We went to the stars, expecting to find enemies. Instead, we found neighbors who just needed to understand us. The Empire fired first, but they also chose peace when offered. That takes courage. Today, humanity stands not alone, but as part of something larger. In the deep void between galaxies, the void swarm consciousness writhed in confusion and fear. For millions of years, they had been the apex predators of the universe. Now, something new had emerged. The prey had become predators. The energy beings they'd hunted had allied with kinetic warriors who brought death in forms the swarm couldn't comprehend. But closer to home, in the Joint Command Center of the new Human Empire Alliance, young officers of both species worked side by side. A human lieutenant showed an Empire ensign how to maintain a rail gun. An Empire navigator taught a human pilot about hyperspace currents. Captain James stood on the observation deck, watching the mixed fleet patrol together. The sleek Empire ships now sported human kinetic weapons. The blocky human vessels had Empire shield generators. Think it will last? Lieutenant Smith asked, joining him. Nothing lasts forever, James replied. But maybe, just maybe, it'll last long enough for both our species to grow into something better. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small beings who dared to travel between them. But for the first time in galactic history, two warrior species had chosen peace over war, cooperation over conquest. The Empire's historians would record this as the day the galaxy changed. Not through conquest or destruction, but through the simple act of two different species choosing to understand each other. And in the distance, other civilizations watched and wondered. If the mighty Empire could make peace with the Death World humans, perhaps there was hope for them all. The monsters had indeed become protectors. And the galaxy was safer for it. The end, asterisk.